Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about humans and food and kind of where our role is in the ecosystem in regards to that, because we have so many different ideas on here. You see a lot of fitness YouTubers these days, they are talking about things like raw food and everything, and it's really funny that people mention that, because when you first look at it, it just seems that, if the world was just kind of created the way it is now and nothing ever changes or evolves or anything like that, then, obviously cooking is technology and it's something humans didn't always do, and so we shouldn't necessarily be cooking our food. And humans, when you look at most of our digestive system and everything, we have mostly what appears to be a herbivore digestive system. And so because of that, if we just look at that from just a natural glance, it can give a different impression than what archaeologists and paleontologists and biologists and everyone over the years have figured out about our species as a whole. And you see a lot of myths about that cooking your food will cook nutrients out of it. It destroys the nutrients and things you need. And let's really look at that for a moment. Because what seems to be the case when we study things is that humans are cooked food eaters. Now, this isn't even a discussion we can have with people who don't believe in evolution at all. And all right, fine, if you want to be a creationist and not believe in evolution collectively, then at least maybe consider microevolution, because that's something a lot of creationists like to throw out there. So we'll just go with that a species changes over time based upon its environment. Its gene flow does shift. So if something happens and one gene becomes predominant, then and it becomes a higher chance of survival, then obviously those who have that will have a higher chance of living and they'll pass it on. And I don't think anyone disagrees with that point. So changes happen even within a species. But what appears to be the case is that the type of pre-humans, the hominids that we came from as a species, were cooking food for almost 2 million years. We found fossil records of it going back as far as 1.9 million years that our species has been cooking food, and cooking food regularly with fire. Well, to the best of our knowledge, we as Homo sapiens are only 200,000 years old. So that means that according to the best data we currently have available, and again that's subject to change, that we have a gap of 1.7 million years between when hominids started cooking and Homo sapiens appeared on the earth for whatever reason. Well, the thing is, with the leading minds in the field these days have hypothesized is that it's actually the cooked food that contributed largely to that. There are other schools of thought that think it's because we ate brains and spinal cords of carcasses and animals every day, that it was something that became a regular part of our diet. So we got just the omega-3s from that. But that doesn't really counter that argument either, because nobody is going to thrive as a society eating raw brain and spinal cords, just because of the parasites and things you can get in there and the diseases and everything that could actually kill you off pretty quick. So that's probably not the case. They weren't eating raw, so they were still cooked food. But the thing is that what we as a species have is something that's unique. Yes, we have larger brains, but the question becomes, how do we get the larger brains? We have the largest brain to body weight ratio of any species that we know of, and accordingly we have higher metabolisms per pound as a result of it. So we have higher food needs because our brains use a lot of calories. They use a lot of nutrition up. And unlike other species, in order to develop our skills that we have and fine motor skills and developments and education and the learning that we've done in our lifetimes, we can't spend all day eating. Now, I know some people say, well, I know this bodybuilder who does. Well, that's different. I'm talking about the species as a whole, not rare individuals who happen to compete in something that requires them to sit around eating 10 or 12 meals a day and cook and eat all day. There are a lot of animals that we observe, particularly pure herbivores, who have to do that. Look at a cow. Look at a gorilla. They literally spend their entire day foraging for food and eating non-stop. And they have to, because even with the ruminant they have in their GI tract, to get enough nutrition from their food, they have to consume much larger quantities of food versus their body weight and size of their mouth than we consume just to sustain themselves. And the difference is because humans don't have to stick to purely cooked foods or high fibrous foods that we have to grind up with our teeth. We can cook things. And when you cook food, what we found is that you actually get better nutrient absorption with most vegetables. Some fruits and things are different, but vegetables, which is always going to be the basis of our diet, is going to be green stuff unless you have access to large amounts of meat or agriculture. But this applies to agriculture as well. Yes, cooking vegetables, grains, things like that, does break down some of the nutrition. You could lose like 30 or 40% of the vitamin C in these green vegetables by cooking them, as an example. However, on the absorption end, we absorb so much more nutrition from any of these plant foods when we cook them, that we end up with more of the nutrients, the micronutrients in our bodies as a result of cooking them than if we had eaten them raw without destroying some of the extras. We absorb it so much better. And the same thing is that we can consume more of it. So you can eat a lot more cooked broccoli. You can eat a lot more cooked cabbage. You can eat a lot more cooked carrots, potatoes, things like that than you can raw ones. If you don't believe me, then go try it and see the difference. Because the cooking process not only makes it easier to chew these foods and get them down, but it also softens them up and lets them slide through the GI tract more quickly, because cooking itself replicates part of the digestion process. We pre-digest the food by cooking it. We break it down. We break down various things in that food to make it digest quicker because we've pre-digested it. We've taken hours off the process so we can get it through our system faster so that we can get more nutrition from it. And the same thing applies to meats. And with meats, of course, it makes them safer to eat. You don't want to eat raw meat. Again, there are many vegetables that you probably don't want to eat raw either for health reasons as well, just due to the way that they're grown in the ground. That you don't want to sit around eating a bunch of raw carrots you haven't washed and things because of the bacteria that's going to be on them. But with meat, we need to cook it in order to again kill parasites, kill bacteria, everything like that. And early man figured this stuff out, that if they cook these foods, we can get so much more nutrition in. People got less sick and we had more energy. And because the cooking process reduces the eating and the digestion process, we can get a lot more food in a lot less time, which gives us free time to do other things. And when you combine those factors together, what happened over what we can tell the hundreds or thousands of generations, access to higher nutrient profile, more nutrition from your food, being able to get more calories with less eating time, and more calories and nutrition from the same amount of food that you foraged up, combined with more free time, which gives you more time to do things that make you more intelligent, to develop, again, strategies to maybe even beat the other tribe so that your tribe wins out, which again would push a predisposition towards intelligence, because those who have a predisposition towards intelligence are going to be able to develop easier with their free time. So accordingly, this cooking the food was instrumental for us developing the brain size that we have, the intellectual capacity that we have, the cognitive ability that we have, the ability to solve problems that we have as a species. So when you look at it that way, cooked food is integral to who we are. So we sit in a very unique position in the ecosystem. So when people try to categorize us the way they do other animals and say, oh, we must be this type of animal because of this, they're not factoring in the biggest factor of what makes us so unique. That's honestly probably the single biggest difference between humans and other animals is, one, our better, finer motor skills, which again can be as a result of, again, our more advanced nervous system. But you combine that with the cooked food, which is really the foundation for all of it, because again, that cooked food gives us more free time and gives us more nutrition and more intellectual capacity in the long term, which again helps with your fine motor skills, helps with language development, helps with problem solving. All the things that we think of that make us so unique and special as a species over all these other species, our intellect, our fine motor skills, our language ability, our ability to communicate and articulate so effectively with each other, really comes back to the fact that we were able to get more nutrition in by gathering less food and spending less time eating it all day, because we've pre-digest the food itself with cooking. So cooked food is basically the foundation of all of our intellectual ability. And that is one of the biggest factors, if not the main factor, that really set us apart from the other animals. And it's really interesting when you think about that. So this whole push of people, oh, we need to get back to natural foods, and which means that raw foods in their raw natural state. And it's so ironic, because none of the raw foods that these people are eating are found in nature. These are all actually the results of cooking, because bananas, broccoli, all these different things that you think of that you eat, their counterparts in the wild are not edible in the same way that these things are. They don't taste or look anything like them. They don't have the nutrition profile that these things have. We've developed all these superfoods using agriculture, using the intelligence that we have developed with cooked foods. And so people who want to push back to a completely raw food diet, you really have to laugh at that, because they're actually going the other direction. To the natural state in that regard is also to have a much lower intelligence, less language ability, less fine motor skills, to turn yourself basically back into an animal. And I'm not sure that that's really their intended goal, but when you look at it logically, that progression of things, that's actually the result of what they're doing. So it's really quite amusing when you think about it that way. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. And please remember to click like if you enjoyed this video. If you do so, thank you so much.